trainings were consisting of 1. Regular trainings, 2. Customized trainings, 3. Collaborative trainings. Regular training. 1. The training course on Earth and Space Science. 2. The training course on Environmental Education for Sustainable Development. 3. The training course on Science Classroom Supervision. Customized training. In-country training. Those conducted in other SEAMEO member countries and in province of Indonesia. Collaborative trainings. Stellar STEM training, collaboration with ATSE. Integrasi STEM dalam kurikulum 2013, collaboration with MOEC of Indonesia, P4TK IPA Bandung, and Bandung Education Department. Workshop and seminars. Science seminar, research dissemination seminar. Research grant. Grants for science teachers to conduct research with science learning as the main theme. Ki Hajar Dewantara, or KHD Award, is an idea and initiative by SEAMEO Qitep in Science to honor and appreciate the science teachers who have dedicated their lives and effort to bring the teaching and learning process up to an excellent level. SEAQI's achievements from 2009 until 2018 are 5,343 alumni, 47 regular trainings, 33 seminar and international conference, 31 staff capacity building activities, and 53 national and international networks.
In carrying out our mandate to improve science teachers and education personnel across the region, we will continue to improve the quality of our programs not only in science education but also acquiring the technology. Therefore, the teachers should possess skill and knowledge to educate their students in facing today's challenges.
Honorable Head of Bureau of Cooperation and Public Relations, the Ministry of Education and Culture of Indonesia, Honorable the Director of SEAMEO Qitep and Science, Honorable Resource Person Dr. Lauren E. Clark, and Professor Aan Maria, all participants of webinar. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon. Welcome to SEAMEO Qitep in Science webinar on educational leadership and management. First of all, please allow me to introduce myself. I'm Eli Heliani, the moderator of today's webinar. This webinar is aimed at providing insight into the role of leadership and management in the world of education, especially to schools and related educational institutions in the period and after the COVID-19 pandemic. In this webinar, we have invited prominent experts to share their expertise and insight on educational leadership and management, which will be valuable information for teachers and education personnel. Thus, I encourage all participants to keep joining this webinar. Please also be informed that we will provide e-certificate for all participants, and to get that, you must fill in the attendance form. The links of the form will be shared at the end of this webinar. Dear participants, please allow me to inform you the agenda of today's webinar. This webinar will start by presentation of Indonesian Anthem, Indonesia Raya, followed by SEAMEO colors. And then we'll have welcome remarks for the director of SEAMEO Qitep in Science, followed by opening remarks from the head of Bureau of Cooperation Public Relations, the Ministry of Education and Culture of Indonesia. And then we will have virtual group photo. And the last but not least will be the keynote speakers presentation and discussion session. Now let's move to the first agenda, which is presentation of Indonesian Anthem, Indonesia Raya, followed by SEAMEO colors. Ladies and gentlemen, next on the agenda is welcome remarks from Dr. Indrawati, the Director of SEAMEO Qitep Institute. Dr. Indrawati, the time is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Cooperation and Public Relations, the Ministry of Education and Culture of Indonesia, Honorable Resource Persons, Dr. Lauren Park, Vice Rector of Student Success and International Relations, Sampurna University, Professor Aan Komariah, Lecturer at Department of Quality Assurance, Indonesia University of Education, all participants of today's webinar. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good afternoon. It is a great honor for me to be here and welcome you all at the webinar on educational leadership and management. This webinar is presented by SEAMEO Qitep in Science to all teachers and education personnel in the Southeast Asia region and beyond as our effort to bring education level in the region into an excellent level. By conducting this webinar, we try to provide a forum for teachers and education personnel to gain the most current trends and issues on educational leadership and management, especially during this pandemic and the normal period. Ladies and gentlemen, currently, the majority of countries affected by COVID-19 are still in the COVID-19 pandemic and are trying to control them. Responding to the condition of the COVID-19 pandemic, several countries adopted policies in the form of lockdowns and social distancing to reduce the spread of COVID-19 outbreak. This certainly has an impact on the educational aspect, so that the learning process cannot take place as usual. Based on data obtained by UNESCO, more than 160 countries have nationwide closed the face-to-face learning activity in school. This makes the process of learning in school have to adapt the current condition. For example, using the distant online learning. This change certainly affects the order of management in school. As a leader in the education unit, the principal will play an important role in these changes. So, we need a leadership that can make effective and efficient decisions in pandemic and post-pandemic condition or to the new normal period. Ladies and gentlemen, we have invited two speakers who are experts on the field of educational leadership and management. Professor Aan Komariah is a senior lecturer from Indonesia University of Education who has expertise in the field of educational administration and management, while Dr. Lauren has proven her educational leadership skill by becoming a Vice Rector for Student Success and International Relationship of Sampurna University. These two experts will share their knowledge and also their experience which can be implemented to lead and manage on educational institutions. Please also allow me to inform you that this webinar has attracted hundreds of teachers and education personnel. We received registration from teachers and education personnel from Cambodia, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Philippines. We expect all participants to learn all information shared by the speakers to be implemented in your school or other educational institution, because a school which is led by a well-qualified leader will be able to develop students to become a well-qualified leader in the future. Ladies and gentlemen, to conclude my remarks, I would like to express my greatest gratitude and appreciation to the Ministry of Education and Culture of Indonesia for its continued support to our center, also to all speakers, Dr. Lauren, Professor Aan, thank you for your willingness to share your expertise with us. And last but not least, thank you to all participants for joining this webinar. I do hope this webinar will give positive impact to education quality in the region. Please enjoy the webinar. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Dr. Indrawati. Dear participants, we are now moving to the next agenda, which is opening remarks by Dr. Effie Mulyani, the head of Bureau of Cooperation and Public Relations of the Ministry of Education and Culture Indonesia. To Dr. Effie Mulyani, the time is yours.
Thank you. Honorable Dr. Indrawati, the Director of SEAMEO Qitep in Science, honorable resource persons that we have today, Dr. Lauren Clark, Vice Rector for Student Success and International Relations of Sampurna University, Ibu Profesor Aan Komaria Halimi, Senior Lecturer of Science Education Faculty of UPI, Indonesia University of Education, all teachers and educational personnel, participants of today's webinar. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat siang. A pleasant good afternoon to all of you. It is my pleasure to be with all of you in this webinar. I would like to extend to you all a warm welcome to the webinar on educational leadership and management. Ladies and gentlemen, education is one of the most crucial building blocks of society. It is therefore important for the region to prepare a cadre of leaders for the education sector who have the leadership and management competencies that regional education systems require in order to produce a workforce that can meet the demands of the 21st century. However, in today's era, leading educational institution is becoming more complex as we are facing more challenges in our life. The capacities and commitment of principals and supervisors that are vital to the quality of educational outcomes and most education system in the world require high quality teachers and leaders working in schools. There are some competencies that teachers and education personnel are expected to have, such as demonstrating critical thinking and analytical skills in the context of educational organizations, provide solutions for real-world problems and challenges facing contemporary leaders in the education sector, individually and in teams, using appropriate current technologies and resources. To acquire these skill sets, they must actively participate in professional development programs to enhance their educational leadership and management knowledge and skills. And the most important thing is they have to implement the knowledge and skills in their schools or educational institutions. Ladies and gentlemen, this webinar is one of the programs provided for all of us to improve the understanding on educational leadership and management. And I would like to turn to all participants and quite simply saying that learn from experts who will share their experience and insights and develop our capabilities to become better and better leaders. Ladies and gentlemen, on this occasion, on behalf of the Ministry of Education and Culture of Republic of Indonesia, I would like to express my appreciation for the effort made by SEAMEO Qitep in Science in conducting this important webinar. Please also allow me to extend our support for SEAMEO Qitep in Science in improving science and education quality in Southeast Asia region. Our support to SEAMEO Center reflects our contribution to create better quality of life in Southeast Asia. So ladies and gentlemen, to conclude this remark, I officially open the webinar on educational leadership and management. I wish all of you to have a productive seminar. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat siang.
Thank you very much, Dr. Effie Mulyani. Ladies and gentlemen, before we move to the main session of this webinar, we would like to invite all invited guests and resource persons to turn on your cameras. We will have a virtual photo session.
Okay.
Excuse me, Professor Anka Maria, would you like to on the camera?
Bukan kelihatan.
Ya, Puan sudah?
Belum.
Nggak bisa, Puan. Excuse me, we will still wait for Professor Anka Maria to turn on her camera.
Mungkin dia dengar. Dr. Laura.
Bisa? Dari siapa yang ini? Satu. 1, 2, 3. Once more. Okay.
Thank you.
1, 2, 3. Okay. Thank you very much indeed. So
Dr. Evi.
Okay, so we will move to the main session. Our speakers will present about educational leadership and management. For each speaker, there will be 30 minutes for presentation and 15 minutes for discussion. To ask questions during discussion session, for participants who join this webinar on Zoom, you can type your question on the Q&A box on the Zoom application. We will invite 1 or 2 selected participants to directly ask questions to the speaker, while other selected questions will be read by moderator. For participants who join this webinar on YouTube, please type your question on YouTube comment box, then I will read the selected of them. Well, everyone, our first speaker is Professor Anka Maria. But before that, please allow me to introduce her by reading her short CV. Professor Anka Maria now is lecturer at Department of Quality Assurance in Education in Indonesian University of Education. Her doctorate from she gained her doctorate from Indonesian University of Education in Education Administration. Some professional project and experiences are between 2007 up to 2011. She was head office of Educational Administration Department in Indonesia University of Education, and from 2014 to 2016, she was head of Office of Educational Administration postgraduate in the same university. And from 2040 up to the present, she involved in many of Ministry of Education project department. While research interest, her research interest is in educational leadership and policy. So now we will start our first presentation. Professor Anka Maria, the time is yours.
Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Good afternoon. Thank to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala for His bless making my presence in this broad and unified forum for the improvement of education quality. I also send my gratitude for the moderator who has given this opportunity for me to explain about leadership in this COVID era. I also thank to the Honorable Mrs. Evi Mulyani, PhD, Head of Partnership and Public Relations Bureau, Ministry of Education and Culture, Republik Indonesia, Dr. Indrawati as a Director of SEAMEO Qitep in Science, and also I send my greeting to Mrs. Lauren Clark. I am glad to be together in this forum. Also for all of the webinar participants in this Zoom channel. Hope that all of you are in happiness. In this time, I will deliver my material about authentic leadership. Hope that it can inspire all of you to be a leader who is given opportunity to do kindness prior than others. Ladies and gentlemen, let me solve my PPT, my slide, which I have made. Share screen. I can share screen. My host can open that. Host disable attendee screen sharing. May I open my share screen? Host.
Yes, please.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, etymology, leadership, contain three words having the meaning as lead, leader, and leadership. Lead means leading, guiding, piloting, and directing. It is the main task taken by a leader. Leader is a person who leads, guides, pilots, and directs. Leadership is a process of leading, guiding, piloting, and directing. It is a reciprocal process between leader and one he leads in passing a situation. It cannot be said as a leadership if there is no one who leads, no one who is led. Communication between leader and one who is led in any passing situation or condition. With other words, leadership is a process of guiding taken by a leader to one who is led using empathic communication in order to solve problems faced in certain situation or condition. Leaders as a person who leads is the person in front of proceeding to make initiative and move in prior than others. Leading means moving in prior, taking the first step, directing other opinions and action. As an initiative person and who participate first, it is necessary for an effort to ensure his followers to jump together and move to the desired direction. At this point, leadership means as an ability to embed, trust, and obtain support from organizational members to achieve organizational goal. As Dubrin said about that. Ensuring followers to participate and lead to the shared vision need a convincing effort to the member by way of giving influence on them by the explaining and the asking them with full of enthusiastic competence and self-confidence. Basically, one of said to have leadership when the leader give influence on other to do something or follow instruction based on leader desire. A leader with leadership property is one with ability to give influence on one how are lead in order to make any effort to achieve goal. Firmly, John Maxwell in the 21st century said that leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. There are influence of leadership by action taken by the leaders, such as Bas define leadership as action to give influence on others in order to achieve the desired final goals. Previously, Northouse said that leadership is a process whereby an individual influences a group of individuals to achieve a common goal. It is clear that leadership is one capacity to significantly give influence on other thoughts, feeling, and behavior. Leadership is an influence created by a person to bring others to be able to take decision and based on the given direction. It is said that there will be leadership in a close relationship between a person and a group of people since there is a common interest. Leadership is a relationship between two people or more in which one gives influence on others to achieve the shared goals. A leader may not be far away. Leader not be far away from his follower and may not know the developing real situation. Leadership is an efficient, not efficient work relation between a leader and stakeholder of the leader or constituent or participant. He must be present and feel all of the condition. There must be a strong relationship between leader and one who is led. Leadership is an interaction between members of a group. So a leader is an agent of reforming, agent of change, a person with his behavior will give more influence on other than other behavior. Bas and Bas confirm that leadership means as an interaction of two or more people in a structure or restructure group on member perception, situation, and expectation. Furthermore, Hoy and Biskel state that leadership is a social process in which an individual or group give influence on other behavior to achieve the shared goal. In general, I said that a leader is a person who has a dream to improve and promote the organization as well as developing any existing people within into new leaders. He gives his best effort to realize his dream into a reality. There are so many definitions of leadership previously, and all of the experts are free to formulate it based on their own perception. In this 21st century, definition of leadership is given more sent by the expert as a full of empathy spirit, maybe impressive empathy to his follower and an accountable person to promote the organization. This can be known from a rising interest of authentic leadership research. In one of definition, I discuss about definition of leadership is an influence. I can show the 4CS concept. This is a 4CS concept. You can read it as a CS in the terminology of social relationship in Indonesia, namely good friend, close friend, CS. Maybe you can see this picture, 4CS. Like the finger, compact one and the other hand. You can read it since terminology in Indonesia as a good friend, maybe now in bahasa soulmate, maybe soulmate, the good friend, close friend. In Greek CS language, it is kamsuis. Kamsuis meaning as friendship. It is philosophy is that a leader and one who is lead must be friend or colleague, not an employer and employee. The employee not as a subordinate from boss or head office. For CS in leadership is component which can give influence, namely casing as a peak of mountain, casing, communicating, competencies, contribution, and sampling. Authentic leader create relation of friend and will influence with 4GS, which is also called as pyramid of influence, the pyramid of influence. The 4GS, which is symbolized by the firm grip of both hands, has a strong brotherhood philosophy and represent a level of influence of leadership capacity building, which is like to a pyramid of influence. The pyramid as seen as the tallest mountain has its peak in the thick grip of the 4GS. For the 4GS hand, which are represented by little finger, as called as the casing or performance. Yeah, casing in Indonesia because we can call it CS. If it I take performance, maybe not CS but PS, PlayStation. No, it is casing. Casing mean as performance. It is small, but it is the first one that people consider. You can see that. The first casing as a finger, small fingers. Furthermore, the second level of the pyramid or ring finger in 4GS is communication, like this. The second level. The first pinky finger, the second, the second you can say ring finger. No. Yeah, ring finger in 4GS is communication. That after performance as the first impression, then it will depend on how 4GS communicates. The third level in the pyramid of influence is represented by the middle finger in the 4GS hand. The middle finger is the biggest and is in the middle position among the ring and index fingers. This implies that it determines greater existence of a capacity than other, but it is hidden and can be known after performance, namely competencies. So competencies among communication and contribution be in the middle pyramid. The fourth level in the pyramid of influence of presented by index finger. In the grip of the 4GS hand, the index finger has meaning of beware, namely a warning that even though the previous three levels have already been owned, without being able to contribute to the school, then all of it will be useless. The fifth level in the pyramid of influence is a fundamental and broad level which in 4GS is symbolized as a 4GS intact hand grip, namely sample or role models. If all of the previous levels are owned, then become a leader who is a role model for all. Maybe I can show you the finger like this, GS. my hand. C, there is S, CS, like this. Okay. Leadership challenges in this crisis era. Ladies and gentlemen, in this COVID era, we can determine any challenges faced by a leader, namely, the first, educational leader face continuous challenge, and this is an involving tension between concern for care or rules. Second, the desire to be loyal to people versus honesty and loyalty to the organization. Third, maintaining the status quo versus making change. Fourth, leader must place a high priority on the welfare of their employees. Fifth, service versus economic rationalism. Alma said that there are 5 tips that must be developed in leadership in this situation. Namely, the first, caring. Second, teamwork. Third, work on fostering trust. Fourth, creative leadership and learning using digital platform. Maybe e-management. We can now e-management, e-leadership, e-learning with synchronous or asynchronous. Fifth, resilience. And sixth, learning community and learning country. In addition, the principle of leadership can continue to be presented as true leader. Namely, the first, know yourself and seek self-improvement. In order to know yourself, you have to understand your be, now, and do attribute. Seeking self-improvement means continuously strengthening your attributes. This can be accomplished through reading, self-study, classes. Second, be technically proficient. As a leader, you must know your job and have a solid familiarity with your employees' jobs. Third, seek responsibility and take responsibility for your action. Search for maybe a way to guide your organization to new height. And when things go wrong, they will sooner or later. Do not blame others. Analyze the situation, take corrective action, and move on to the next challenge. Smoke sound and timely decision. Use good problem solving, decision making, and planning tools. At the example, be a good role model for your employees. They must not only hear what they are expected to do, but also see. Know your people and look out for their well-being. Know human nature and the importance of sincerely caring for your worker. Keep your people informed. Know how to communicate with your people, senior, and other key people within the organization. If you feel about that, maybe you can take a stress and conflict. Develop a sense of responsibility in your favor. Develop good character traits within your people that will help them carry out their professional responsibilities. Ensure that tasks are understood, supervised, and accomplished. Communication is the key to the responsibility. Remember the communication. Train your people as a team. Although many so-called leaders call their organization, department, section, etc., a team, they are not really team. They are just a group of people doing their jobs. Use the full capability and capability of your organization by developing of team spirit, you will be able to employ your organization, department, section, or etc. to its fullest capabilities. To be an authentic leader, in the end, I want to say that being a true leader, which is built on self-awareness to implement the leadership value of in Muslim terminology, I say sidik, tablik, amanah, patonah, by exerting courage with high self-discipline, building, networking based on a clear vision of the future, moral and ethical value through strengthening solid relationship and openness of work to achieve goal. To be an authentic leader, there are things that you must be, know, and do. This fall under the leadership framework, like this. I can see. Sorry. Be a professional. Example, be loyal to organization, perform selfless service, take personal responsibility. Be a professional who possesses good character trait. Example, honesty, competence, commitment, integrity, courage, straightforward, imagination. Know the 4 factors of leadership. Do you know? 4 factors of leadership: follower, leader, communication, situation. You must know the 4 factors of leadership. Know yourself. Example, strengths and weakness of your character, knowledge and skill. Know human nature. Example, human need and emotion and how people respond to stress. Okay. I refer from Warren Barry's. To be an authentic leader, there are some attributes to present. Namely, I can show this picture. Sorry. To know yourself authentically, listen authentically, express authentically, appreciate authentically, serve authentically. It is dimension of authentic leaders. I can show the picture as space. Okay. This is a space shuttle leading to 5-star leadership, namely visionary leadership. It best is a value-based leadership with a balance by a sincere service practices as servant leadership. It is progress tool is the wing to fly, namely transformative leadership and instructional or constructive leadership. Its constant is the integrity of overall style guided by self-awareness as a leader having integrity. That is all for my explanation. Hopefully, it can be useful. Sorry if still have many mistakes. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Professor Aan, for your interesting presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, dear participants, before we come to the discussion session, allow me to read a short resume of her presentation. Professor Aan mentioned about the meaning of leadership, with the key phrase is to influence other people to achieve certain group vision, and in doing so, all of them need to have good relationship, which she used the term of 4Cs: casing, communication, competency, contribution, and sample or role model. And challenges in this era, she mentioned about some of them, which are caring, teamwork, work on fostering trust, creative leadership and learning using digital platform, resilience, a learning community and learning country. She mentioned also the rising type of leadership, which is authentic leadership. This type of leadership characterized by authenticity, which you need to use when you want to know yourself, listen, express, appreciate, and serve others. And this authentic leadership has 5 dimensions, which related to actually the combine of value, servant, transformational, constructivism, visionary leadership. So this authentic leadership combine the 5 of kinds, other 5 kinds of leadership. So a little bit a holistic one. So we have 15 minutes for a discussion session, and I have already given some questions. There are some of them. I will read the first one, Professor Ankomaria. Let's say there are 3 questions. The first one from Qitep. The question is, as a leader, we find difficulties to make decisions because of personal reasons. Could you please share how to overcome these difficulties? And the next one from Denny Kodrat from Sumedang. The question is, in this situation, teachers should face challenges in teaching using learning management system, all kinds of application as teaching media. How, as a leader, to influence teachers to have a growth mindset and ready with a chaos and complexity era? And the third one from Chandra Sudimo.
Could you please repeat the second?
All right. Okay. The second one from Mr. Denny. In this situation, teachers should face challenges in teaching using learning management systems or kinds of application as teaching media. How, as a leader, to influence teachers to have a growth mindset and ready with the chaos and complexity era? And then the third one, it's related actually to Mr. Denny question from Indramayu, Chandra Sudirno. The question is, as a leader, how, and please give tips to motivate, subordinate, so that all members or staff can collaborate and contribute to achieving common goals. It will be enough 3, or you need, can we have some more? So you can answer all in the holistic answers. Professor An? Or you prefer to answer the 3 first questions first?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. Yes, please.
Okay. Thank you for question. A leader who direct people remotely to do work to achieve organization goal. They use new technology to improve their work, to find new directing model, to communicate with their followers via electronic media. Type of communication, maybe communication skill, social networking skill, use WA, Line, and many platform many platform in e-learning. We begin Google Classroom, Google Meet, Google Doc. It's the facilitate can use it. Maybe can use it optimal. The leader now followers quality, the ability to use ICT, the ability to convince other of the benefit of new innovative technology, the need for a place working across time boundaries, spatial boundaries, and cultural barriers where direct supervision interaction is not possible, global and multicultural mindset, monitoring and managing virtual for work effectively. It's I go to question number 1 because I answer teachers should face challenges using technology media. As the leader, sulit ya. Difficult to decision because it's about private problem ya, and the organization on personal. I think it is about responsibility from leader to follower. What can I say? No doubt about that. You can open the policy. You can open the rule. What the rule say about that? And on behalf rule, you can communicate with them. But the communication is key to develop solve problem, and the communication must be developed with two terminology. The first in my religion statement, the first laina. No rude, yeah, but laina, smoothly. What can I say in English terminology? And then the second, laina, and then what can I say? It's about motivating. So you can develop the communication with the follower with impressive empathy, and with smooth conversation, and always motivate them. It's the second number, or for the first yang penanya pertama. The third, as a leader, how and give tip to motivate subordinate to contribute in achieving common goal. Cara motivasi. Just a moment, just a minute. If I take the terminology of Herzberg hygiene and motivational factor, maybe you can attend. You can attend about Harrisburg and hygiene and motivation factor. Working condition, you can pertimbangkan. Consider, ya. Consider working condition. Take the condition, good condition, accompanying, no bad condition. And then policy and administrative practices. For the motivate the other, maybe you can saw the policy and administrative practices, like as reward or punishment. But the reward is very important to motivation to motivate the other. Salary and benefit, because if you have many job and no give salary or benefit or incentive, maybe it is the rejected, yeah. And then supervision, job security, fellow workernya, personal life, and the other. In the term motivator or satisfier, maybe you can recognition, achievement, advancement, growth, responsibility, job challenge. Hygiene factor must be present in the job before motivator can be used to stimulate the person. That is, you cannot use motivator until all the hygiene factors are met. It's Herzberg said. Herbert's needs are specifically job-related and reflect some of the distinct things that people want from their work as opposed to Maslow's hierarchy of need, which reflect all of need in person life. Building on this model, Herbert coined the term job enrichment. So if you want to motivate follower, reach the job, give and as a hadiah, give, and give opportunity relate with the competencies, her competencies. It's maybe enough about the third question from
Pak Chandra, maybe Chandra Sudirno. Hopefully this is a gentleman. Okay, we'll still have one more question, Professor An. Sorry. The question comes from Eldon Marji Gayao, seem to be from the Philippines. Ma'am, is it necessary for a person to hold a high position in the department or agency before he could become real leader? Can an ordinary employee still practice leadership through other means? That's the question. Yes, please.
Okay.
Shall I repeat the question? You need to okay, so the sound is on now. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, wait a moment. Many persons have ability, capacity, but not be to be a leader. To be a leader, not enough have capability ability and capacity, but also he or she can achieve from top manager or top leader the actualization of employee, how much contribute to the organization, and how much to be a role model in the organization. And finally, maybe the relationship among bureaucracy and relationship and communication with other, as someone fluent in environment, and always take the other person as a social environment. So to be a leader, must have good trait, yeah, personality, and we can say it ocean. Ocean trait, the big five personality. Someone can take the achieve high level in leader, as a leader, top leader, because he can show the performance, have a motivation, and have a commitment to build the organization and person, like as make a leader to employee, make a leader to make a leadership to leader, make a leader as a leadership. It as like that. Enough?
Okay, that's it. So hopefully it will answer the question from for I don't know, this is Mr. or Mrs. Elden Agi Gayao. Hopefully it will answer your question, and we still have some time, so I will read another question from Rafnil Yeti. The question is, in the new challenge, how to support my team to better in teaching teaching learning process, thing like that. Shall I repeat the question, ma'am?
No.
Okay, thank you. Yes, please.
Okay. I think your thinking skill can be considered directional skill because they are set the direction for your organization. They provide vision, purpose, and goal definition. These are you as to the future, allowing you to recognize the need for change. Now about goal. Goal organization convey a strong vision of where they will be in the future. As a leader, you have to get your people to trust you and be sold on your vision. Using the leadership tool described in this guide and being honest and fair in all you do will provide you with the amount you need to gain their trust. And then maybe you can get 6 steps of goal setting: vision, goal, objective, task, timeline, and follow-up. The first step in setting goal and priorities is to personally develop what the organization should look like at some future point. That is, establish a vision. The team must know the first step in setting goal, the same goal, no different goal, and then know the mission of the organization as a team. Once you have your vision and have the shared vision, like as maybe you in Indonesian novel 5 minutes, they have vision, the team vision, not the personal vision. The established goal for the team with the active participant of the team. Goals are also stated in unmeasurable terms, but they are more focused. For example, the organization must reduce pulsa for e-learning, and establish objective from team. Define objective, provide a way of measuring the evaluate movement toward vision achievement. The team must be know about the objective as the short goal, not as strategic objective or strategic plan. And then have know about determined tasks and span of control. For supervise from leader to lead to follower as a team, and establish a priority for the task. Go together, learn together, and achieve together. Maybe like this. Finally, step to follow up the winning of team and the win of team, because it is symbolic or jargon to take a change from team to organization. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Professor Ann Komaria. I think the time is almost there. And also we don't. There isn't any question again. So thank you very much indeed, Professor Ann Komaria, for your presentation. And now we will move to another presentation. Again, thank you very much indeed, Professor Ann Komaria, for your sharing.
My pleasure.
Thank you,
Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, thank you. Dear participants, ladies and gentlemen, now we will move to our next speaker, who is Dr. Lauren E. Clark. Please allow me to introduce our speaker for this session by reading her short CV. Dr. Lauren E. Clark, she is now Vice Rector for Student Success and International Relations, Sampurna University, and gained her doctorate from the University of Massachusetts Amherst in International Education Policy. Her professional project and experience, there are many, 30 years of experience in international education, and then international project for the U.S. Department of State, yes, aid and foreign ministers, managing educational initiative in Eastern Europe and Eurasia, and teach pedagogy, applied ethics, international development, and culture studies. Her research interests are comparative education policy in transitional states and the political, it's not so, okay, the political academy for economy of higher education. I'm sorry, Dr. Lauren, it's not very clear to see the slide.
That's okay. Thank you.
Okay, dear participants, let's start our second presentation. Dr. Lorraine, the time is yours.
Thank you. Let me get my screen shared, please. Let's see. And, whoops, excuse me, is it on the screen?
Yes, we can see you clearly.
Okay, okay, thank you. Well, I'm delighted to be with you here today, and I'd like to add my thanks to our hosts at SEAMEO Qitep and to the ministry, and thank Professor An for kicking off the discussion. It's a tough act to follow. To provide some context for my remarks today, I'd just like to say a few words about the university where I work in Jakarta, Sempurna. It's a very young institution. It's a private, nonprofit university that's part of the Sempurna school system. It goes from K through 12 and then university. We were founded about 7 years ago as part of the mission of the Putra Sempurna Foundation, which is designed to create an American-style college in Indonesia and to promote international collaboration and mobility. Right now we have about 650 students, and very small for Indonesian or ASEAN standards, and 3 faculties, engineering and technology, business, and education. What's interesting, given our topic today, is over 70% of our students are drawn from low-income families, and most are first generation to enroll in universities. They're drawn from all over Indonesia, from many islands, small villages, and cities throughout the country. So, turning to our theme today, leadership and management, I would add to Professor An's comments, there's abundant literature about both of these roles, as well as how they relate to each other. Most of the theories and models are drawn from business schools, the professional world, motivational speakers. And there are thousands of experts that have created models, taxonomies, and so forth of the characteristic of effective leaders and managers. And we've heard a number of these from Professor An today. I'm going to take a slightly different tack and differentiate them. The consensus in the literature is generally that the roles of leader and manager are distinct but intertwined. Leaders guide their institutions toward a vision, as we've heard. They provide the inspiration to motivate their staff, and they communicate their goals throughout the institution. They must also have the foresight to anticipate problems so that they can resolve them early. That was particularly salient this year, as we know. In contrast, managers are responsible for implementing the vision by planning and directing tasks and coordinating the work of the team. They're more responsible for the interpersonal relations and functioning of the staff. Some individuals may be capable of performing both roles successfully, but more frequently they take very different temperaments, styles, and abilities to do well. A good leader may be also an effective manager, And a manager may have leadership qualities, but it is not a foregone conclusion. One of the seminal works of leadership theory, Leading Change by John Cotter at the Harvard Business School, summarizes the contrast between these roles: strategic vision versus operational effectiveness. Leadership is a quality, he says, while management is a process. However, given our population in this webinar, our participants, in my opinion, most of the business models of leadership and management have very little relevance for the field of education, although some principles are universal. The roles in education tend to be more diffuse. Often they're combined, leaders and managers, due to budget constraints and not always based on individuals' aptitudes because of political appointments, career ladders, and other factors. Still, there is a strong need in education for both vision and implementation. We all share some basic common goals. We know what they are: educating students and achieving learning outcomes. How we get to these can vary widely.
Excuse me, Dr. Lauren.
Yes.
Do you need the PPT to play by us or from your side?
Oh dear, it didn't go up?
No.
Oh, can I share this? I'm sorry, I've gotten through so much. Technical problems. I hit share screen. Should I do something different?
No, we don't see your PowerPoint. We have already your PPT here. So shall we share from our side here?
Can, it's just difficult to advance it so forth. Let's do that then. Let's try.
Okay then. Okay. So.
Apologies to everyone.
We are trying to dissolve. Just a moment. That's it.
There we go. Can I go back a couple or one slide, please? There we go. That will make more sense. So this is a brief summary of much of the literature that differentiates leaders and managers. As we've heard, leaders envision, inspire, and communicate, whereas managers plan, direct, and actualize. Next, please. So John Cotter, who is a leadership and management expert from Harvard Business School in the US, has one of the seminal texts in Leading Change, which is particularly relevant this year. He characterizes leaders as needing strategic vision, whereas managers need operational effectiveness. Next, please. And here are some collective reviews of educational leadership resources for your reference. These are a few that I recommend. The first and the third are actually from ASEAN researchers, so I thought that would be good to include. Next, please. So as we've found this year, many of the theories and the models have gone by the wayside. We have been fixing the plane in the air, as they say, repairing the plane as it's flying. And because of COVID-19 and the pandemic, all of our institutions have been put into a great deal of turbulence, and it's required even more strong leadership and management. We've all been forced to transition from face-to-face classroom teaching to online classes and remote learning in an extremely short period of time. Now, of course, online education is not a new phenomenon. It's been in practice for several decades, but many have been passive and ineffective platforms in the past. The ancient ones from the 80s and 90s were not much more than sort of mail-in education. And now they've gotten much more interactive, much more effective, and just in time in our case. It's important to note that just transferring from face-to-face teaching to a technological platform is not enough. It doesn't translate exactly. Most of us find that out as we're grappling with different platforms. So there are complex challenges that face our academic managers and faculty in order to achieve institutional goals. Let's consider all the myriad challenges that have been caused, particularly this year, by the pandemic. Health and safety of stakeholders, the physical distance from learning environments and resources, changing government regulations. Clearly, the governments have not known what to expect as the pandemic progresses. And so, at least here in Indonesia, it's been incremental, extending lockdowns and restrictions as they see fit based on the spread and so forth. It makes it very hard to plan educational programs, of course, and to communicate with students and teachers. Technological and infrastructure barriers are significant in our region. Not everybody has the devices that are needed to receive the lesson, and not all regions have adequate internet access. So these are real obstacles when we're dealing with remote education. Also, turning it inward to our staff and faculties, many of us are unfamiliar with online learning platforms. I will confess, I was a Luddite. I was one of the ones that was always involved with classroom teaching. And it was sort of a shock to the system to suddenly have to learn numerous platforms in order to keep in touch with our programs and our students. The software applications, they're new ones every week. And to keep up with them, if you're an experienced teacher, is an enormous challenge. And finally, attitudes. Resistance to new pedagogical approaches and tools, particularly for those of us and those of our staffs that have been doing this for a long time. While we respect the experience, we can also build in some resistance to changing methods of teaching. So we have to be able to combat that. Next. So some food for thought. Keep our schools functioning and our students learning, we have had to be much more creative than ever before. As our friend Dr. Einstein says, necessity is the mother of all invention. Sometimes it forces our hand. So I'd like to share a couple of examples of concrete innovations that our faculty have come up with during this term and during the spring term in order to keep the education flowing. In particular, because of Qitep's orientation, I've focused on our science faculty. So I hope there are some good ideas, and I want to hear from the participants also how you've solved some of these problems. Next. Oh, I jumped the gun, sorry. Let me talk about how we'd had to deal with the crisis, first of all. Back in March, when we all heard that this was spreading, that the situation was becoming dangerous, we have a very visionary rector, and he actually made the decision to stop classes for a week, 10 days, while we reconsidered how we would proceed. This was just around the time that the government was considering a shutdown. Since we're a private institution, we had a little more flexibility, but it synchronized nicely. We gave our faculty time to really take a step back, reorganize what they were doing, and and proceed. Of course, we had to communicate right away to students, parents, faculty, and staff and tell them what was going on, and then to be available to answer some of the anxieties and concerns that all of them had. We had to set up training workshops right away because some of the faculty were not in a position to immediately transfer to an online platform. Fortunately, we had an advantage in that we are partnered with a US institution that shares its curriculum, some of its courseware through an online platform. Even though we have not used online delivery in the past, we do it face-to-face. It's a nice package, and it was easily converted to our own styles of teaching. And we worked with faculty to give them access to lots of the applications, add-ons, video possibilities, all of these things. And we have a really good Center for Excellence in Teaching and Learning, so I have to give credit to my colleague there. Because our students are so far spread around through the country, we had to conduct an audit of where our students were at home, where they lived, their locations, and what access they had to devices and to internet access. Because of the demographics that I mentioned before, with many students coming from very disadvantaged areas, we had to commit to provide them with devices, sometimes just a hand phone, but other times laptop computers. And then, given the lockdown, we had to find a creative way to have these delivered. And we worked with the local government offices where they were, and in their schools and so forth, to have them centralized so they could come and pick them up and not risk their health. This was quite a production. It took some planning. On our campus, working from home, our information technology people were very important. We had to set up hotlines so that students who were doing homework in the middle of the night or late at night could reach somebody for emergencies or for questions that they had to complete their work. So the IT team they showed great management leadership in that they had to reorganize some of their staff shifts so that the full day was covered, an evening. And then we had to provide devices to the students, as I mentioned before. And then ongoing, we are checking and troubleshooting, and we have checklists and so forth for all of our instructors with support systems to help them. Next slide, please. Thank you. Going back to my colleague who ingeniously came up with a fluid mechanics module, Dr. Dati was wondering, how do we conduct laboratory classes remotely? And this is a problem for a lot of schools, I think. We have mechanical and industrial engineering, and a required set of classes has laboratories. So that's very difficult to do if you don't happen to have a laboratory in your home, which most of us don't. So what he did was he developed experiment modules that used very basic materials from a local hardware store. You can see that at the chart below. And then he set up an experiment. He did a demo video that he shared with his students. Then he tasked them with conducting the experiment at home, reporting on it, and then meeting with the class to discuss their results. We thought that was very, very innovative. One of the good benefits of this was because we had to put a financial burden on students to buy the materials, we committed to reimbursing them. And it turned out that for 3 modules and about 30 kids in each, the overall cost was around 10 million rupiah, which is a sum, but it's really at or below what the department would normally use for materials. So this did not cause a huge inconvenience. Next slide. So other science classes, chemistry and physics. My colleague Pak Iwan, who teaches both actually, researched many different applications and learning products and found one through FET Colorado. That's the company name. It has both physics and chemistry. And I won't attempt to explain what these visuals are, but hopefully the scientists will know what they are and how useful they are. They're interactive though, and he can work with students as they go through different experiments. So again, he's overcome a huge obstacle by some creativity. Okay, next slide, please. So Professor Darwin here. Adaptation this year has been critical, obviously, and that is a major quality of leaders. And it should be a quality of managers as well. For all of the faculty and even some of us administrators, we've had to think outside the box. We've had to dispense with old ways of doing things and come up with new solutions. And this has happened across the faculty. I focused on science education because of the audience here, but we've also had to do this in humanities, communication, mathematics, social science. So I would say that our faculty have have been very successful, but again, I would attribute the inspiration to leadership of the university, our rector and deans of the departments, who really challenged them to think outside the box and to really put the students first. So next slide, please. Finally, though none of us would have wished for this year, I mean, it's been tragic and it continues to be. And this has not been a smooth professional period of time for any of us, but we have noticed that it forced our hand to come up with some innovations and to take advantage of some opportunities that we probably wouldn't have otherwise. For example, we have found a way to keep education going in any emergency. We've been able to, well, hopefully not anything worse than this, but we've been able to provide continuous learning to our students, even though they couldn't physically be with us. And online delivery helps us connect students and instructors despite geographic boundaries. For many of our institutions, and ours in particular, we're very spread out, and we also work with US colleagues occasionally. The online platform makes it much simpler to do that, and it provides greater access. For those students that would not be able to come to Jakarta under normal circumstances, now they can participate in an education. More broadly, this format creates some exciting possibilities for international collaboration, particularly throughout ASEAN. The time differences that are fairly close together make it simpler for synchronous learning, although asynchronous learning is also very common. But we really look forward to the possibility of collaborating with many of your schools and having our students collaborate with each other. So the urgency of the crisis has forced us to learn. As I said earlier, many of us did so less willingly or with more trepidation, but we've learned new tricks and sometimes more effective ones, ways to deliver information, and especially in the sciences and in fields of STEM, where innovations are constant. It's really a good exercise for students, but certainly instructors as well, have to learn what's new and current. And I appreciate it, even though, as I said, I was very resistant to online education in the beginning. We have to change given the circumstances. So one last example I would like to give, because it may impact our collaboration with some of your organizations, is we have an English medium instruction only at Semporna University, and this can be very difficult to find students throughout the country that have the English proficiency and math proficiency to meet our admissions standards. We are a young institution, so we are very flexible, but because the classes are delivered in English, this was always an obstacle while we were recruiting. Well, because of the situation this year, we developed a preparatory program that we're delivering to about 9 different regions, cities, and the high schools there in Indonesia right now. For seniors, I think some juniors as well in high school, it is free of charge to the school, but we ask them to nominate the students that might be able to meet the proficiency requirement within a year. And we provide the instruction. We can't provide the technology, but we will test them. And if they are interested in our institution, they have that option. At the very least, when they are ready to apply to universities, they will be virtually bilingual. So that's one of the areas where we feel a huge commitment to contributing back to the country. And this could potentially extend to the region. We're hoping to do more collaborative work. I'd love to hear some examples of how the crisis has sparked some innovation on your campuses. Thank you very much. And last slide. I'd be happy to answer questions.
Okay. Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Lauren, for the presentation, very informative. So we will have 5 minutes for discussion. I have already some of the questions here. What's your name? Okay. I have 3 questions, Dr. Lauren, so I will read for you. The first one from Mr. Danny Kodrat. The question is, you mentioned about the you distinguish between leader and manager. So the question are, should a leader be a manager first, or a leader can be a leader without sitting as the manager position? The second one, does a teacher play a role as a leader or manager, or both? That's the first question. And the second one from Mr. Dadang Anwar Hairunis. What is the difference between, that's the same question more or less. The difference between a leader and a manager maybe needs more elaboration, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And another question from Pak Sandra Sudimo from Indramayu. Delivering extraordinary material, what is the role of the leadership in building partnership with other agencies for the advancement of schools, and how to advance schools to face the COVID-19 pandemic? That's, I think, the 3 questions.
Thank you. Great questions. Let me address the distinction between leadership and management first. To refer back to some of the theories and the models that we talked about, in particular Qatar, as I said, leadership is not a position. It can be, but you can be designated as in a position with a title that appears to lead an organization. Leadership is a quality. A teacher can be a leader. You've seen teachers that organize people, motivate people, inspire kids, get clubs going, start competitions. Those are leaders. They may not run the whole organization, but they have leadership qualities. I would say, in my experience too, that what makes a good manager sometimes does not make a good leader. They can overlap. But think about it, a manager needs to have meticulous attention to detail, has to keep the cogs turning, keep people moving and contributing in their various ways. And so they have to be sort of in the weeds, as it were. They have to be down and working with their team and processes and tasks that make the organization function. A leader is, there was an icon in one of the slides where they had a telescope. You have to see over the horizon. We can get easily bogged down in the weeds, especially in a year like this. And we need both. We need somebody to say, how about if we change our whole academic delivery system and do this? Or let's just stop and take a breath for a couple of weeks and reorganize our thoughts. What do we need to do for our students? That's a leader. A manager will make it done. They'll get it done and deliver it. So I hope that helps. But again, I would differentiate between a title and a set of talents and aptitudes. The other thing that I've read is that managers have authority by virtue of their title. They're put in an organization in a supervisory role, and they are managing people and jobs is one of their tasks. Leader, it depends on the position in the organization, but we can't imbue them with the characteristics. If they're micromanaging all the time, they're not going to be an effective leader, and the organization can get off track and it may not meet its vision. So hope that helps. And for Andra, let's see, the role of, leadership in building partnerships. Again, I would refer to Dr. Indrawati knows our rector, Pat Yudi, and he is a visionary leader, and he has worked with international cooperation in the past. And so he is very effective in mobilizing us to reach out. And as you heard in the beginning, one of my tasks in my job is international relations. So I work with him closely on that. In any institution, if a leader sees a role for the organization, for the institution, to reach out, partner schools, sister cities, however it manifests, joint clubs between students. These are really not easy, but straightforward ways to start collaborations. And I think advancing schools, to face the COVID-19 pandemic, we are reaching out now to a number of the high schools that have produced students for us around the country, and we're sharing information. We're talking to teachers, to administrators about teaching methods, and some of the examples that I gave today are examples of how do you deliver a lab, how do you correct mathematics at a distance in real time, and so forth. So I think there are many ways to collaborate with other institutions and just sharing ideas. And I don't want to say anything premature, but we've actually proposed having a conference where we can share ideas, because we are eager to learn from all of you as well. And sharing and collaborating, I think that's one of the strongest ways that we can combat this pandemic. Thank you.
We have another two other questions.
Okay.
The first one from Jan Darrell Kasunkat. The question is, how can we best address issues this pandemic in a bureaucratic country where instructions are in conflict across level of organization? That's the first question. And the next one from Anami El Kolasi. What would you suggest to avoid a poor management institution, corrupt incoming quality teachers leaders, What would you suggest to avoid a poor management institution corrupt incoming quality teacher leaders?
Let me see, I'm trying to find these. Okay, so the first one, well, since I am a guest in this country, I'm not going to comment on the policies of the government because I want to stay here. And I think if it provides any assurance or comfort at all, my native country is not doing real well either. Okay, we don't have great leadership, I will say publicly, and we have had the highest level of crisis and death and infection in the world. So it can happen to anyone. I've been very impressed, actually. It's frustrating at times, but I've been really impressed. And I've shared this with US colleagues, how hands-on the government has been in many ways. A colleague came back from Texas in the US and said, no one wears masks. No, everyone's just doing their usual business. And the numbers went up. So as annoying as it can be, and the stop and start policies are frustrating when you have to lead and you have to plan, it may be saving your life. So I would not dare to critique them right now. I would just say that having dialogues and backup strategies for different events and different things that you're planning in your organization, think like a chess player. You know, think plan A is this, and then if there's a government restriction or a school restriction, this is plan B, like when my PowerPoint didn't work in the beginning, and then plan C is something different. So that's all I can offer. I think, tips to solve the resistance of teachers to new technology. I think, is that still for me or is that from Professor Anna? Very different conditions. Leadership can take many forms, I would say. And obviously, anywhere in the world, in any of our countries, where people have few resources and are struggling with access to connectivity, it's going to be a challenge. I would say we are educators, and we have to remind our colleagues that are resistant to embracing new methods that we're here to promote education. We've got to do it. We've got to embrace it ourselves. I think one of the traits that Dr. Anna shared was be self-reflective and be honest with yourself. You have to say, I'm a teacher. Am I unwilling to learn? That doesn't make any sense. So I think just reassuring each other that that's what we're here to do can help. You know, people don't like change. It's a human nature issue, I think. It's not necessarily COVID related, but many of us, especially as we get a little older, it's tough to dispense with what we've always done and try a whole new approach. But I think having support, I think it's fear. If people are not fearful and they know that they have the support of colleagues or technical people, they're going to be less resistant. I hope it works. We're still fighting it too.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Laurent. We have another question. It's come from Mrs. Sugiono from Panarukan. The question is, it's very different condition and between big city and small city, young teacher and old teacher. My question are, how about leadership in limited condition? And the second one, how about tips to solve the resistance of teacher to the new technology? It's about resistance again. Yes, ma'am, please.
Thank you. Well, probably all of our schools have a wide variety of demographics in our teachers and our students. And some of you may also have geographic variation in your students as well. Some of you may be regionally based, but so we've had to face the issue of the big city and the small village. I think if we're talking specifically in terms of the pandemic, there's some real physical realities that prevent people from connecting if they're from small towns and big cities. One of the strategies we had to do, because many of our students frankly couldn't afford data packages, or there weren't towers near them, we had to find someplace close by where they could access internet, and then we had to send them data packages. And that may be extravagant in a way, but it's really the only way. Many of them are being sponsored by their local governments, so they are helpful as well. Old and young teachers, well, as a representative of the older group, I would say what I said before, that old dogs have to learn new tricks these days, as it were, and not to be rude, but I include myself. And I think I'm astonished at how versatile and open-minded kids are. A new application or technology comes out and they all know it in 2 days. Not all of us can do that. So I think having support systems between them, and possibly this doesn't always work because depending on the institution, but having mentor-mentee relationships between faculty can be really helpful. It isn't always experienced older faculty member. Maybe a younger faculty member who's very technologically savvy could mentor an older faculty member. I think if it's done with respect and unity, that could work. I have relied on many younger colleagues to teach me how to use things. So I hope people are open to that.
Okay, we have another question from a participant from YouTube. This is from Nugraha Sofyan. The question is, what is the underlying difference between the leadership in your country and that in our country, Indonesia? Thank you. That's the question, ma'am. Yes.
We need 2 more hours for that. I think that's a dissertation. I won't take 2 hours. That's a very good question, and it's been interesting living here almost 4 years now, and I have lived in other countries, but I think the distinction is very pronounced here, partly because I think there is a more hierarchical system in some ways here. There is a tradition of respect and deference to authority. I would say, and I don't say this completely with pride, but Americans really feel that they must be independent and mavericks, and if the government tells you to wear a mask, you say, I won't wear a mask. If the government said, we fight. If somebody violates a civil right, you sue them, or you go to the police, or you fight back a lot. And that's in some ways very entertaining, or it's effective in some times, but other ways it's exhausting and it doesn't accomplish the desired goal. We don't have really the same principle of, say, Pancasila, or we don't have that type of ethos in the country. It's very individualist. And that's a whole other school of research, but we're more individualist, whereas it's much more collectivist here. And I think there is more respect for authority here. And I have to say just one last thing, it's generational as well. I think the people in, say, my parents' generation that came through world wars and so forth, they were very respectful of authority, much more than the generation that came up in the 60s and 70s. So I'm sure that some variations are true in these countries too, but it's national identity and priorities.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Lauren. I think we have very limited time available, so I think we will have to stop the discussion session. Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Lauren, for
Thank
your
you.
information. Very interesting presentation, and hopefully dear participant will have some great insight from the presentation and discussion.
Thank you.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, dear participant, this is the end of our webinar session. Please allow me to conclude this webinar. Some short resume from both presenters. Professor Aan mentioned about the leadership. It's about influencing people to achieve certain group vision, and it's related to relationship and many kinds of leadership, but there is a kind of some like current trend, which is combine at least 5 of type of leadership, which is authentic leadership. That it is principally characteristic of authentic leadership is authenticity. Sorry, in knowing yourself, listen, express, appreciate, and serve for others. So the key word is authenticity. Authenticity. Okay, and we have challenges in this era, and there are words that may be interesting for us to consider. Let's say like that in this era, we need to work on fostering trust. And then as a leader, we need to develop the creativity and learning units using digital platform. And another new words would need to be considered is resilience. And from Dr. Lauren, she mentioned about the differences between manager and leader, and also address about the current challenges which related to the pandemic condition. And the challenge start with the health, which needs to be meet the COVID protocol, and it changed many aspects of school life, and which need to be handled by teachers and educational personnel through their chosen leadership paths. And there are some strategic response in pandemic condition from Sampurna University, range from organize online classes, and also try to develop using the PET Colorado as a tool, and also conducting lab classes remotely using very ordinary equipment. And also Dr. Lauren mentioned that we need to communicate amongst all stakeholders, and also provide support for all stakeholders in form of enhancing competencies, infrastructure, complete data, and also system. And last but not least, several keywords will help us to get along and survive in this era. And those words are adaptation. And from Professor Anne Maria, the term is resilience. That's two words with hopefully will give us a kind of ease in responses to this pandemic era and post-pandemic era. This is the important skills, I think. So, ladies and gentlemen, before we end the webinar, I would like to remind you to fill in the attendance form. We have shared the link on the chat box. Please fill the form, as it's one of the requirements for you to get e-certificates. For participants who join us on YouTube, you can submit this webinar resume through the link on the screen to get a certificate. We will send it to your email by 7 working days at the latest. And please also help us to improve our future program by filling in the evaluation form at the link that we share on Zoom and YouTube chat box. And finally, on behalf of SEAMEO Qitep in Science, I would like to extend our gratitude to Dr. Effie Moriani, Professor Anke Maria, and Dr. Lauren E. Clark for your sharing and support to this webinar. And thank you very much indeed for you all participants for joining this webinar. Stay safe and see you in our next webinar. Stay tuned, we will still have 8 other webinars up to the mid of September this year. Okay, thank you very much indeed, everyone. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon. Have a good day.
Successfully conducted many programs that are categorized into 3 programs, namely professional development, learner resource development, and professional communities. The 3 program thrusts are elaborated into 8 categories of program, which are: training course is one of SEAKI's responsibilities to increase the quality of teachers and education personnel. The trainings are divided into 3 categories, which are regular training courses, customized training courses, collaboration training courses. Workshops are intended to enhance and develop teachers, education personnel, as well as internal resources competencies related to science learning. International conference, seminars, and online lectures purpose is to disseminate best practice of science education. Science research grants has been awarded to best 30 research proposals of Indonesian science teachers and education personnel. To reach the goal of enhancing teachers and educational staff quality, SEAKIS has successfully established mutual collaboration and networking with other institutions nationally, regionally, and internationally. Staff capacity building activities are intended to increase the capability of SEAKIS staff.